This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Welcome to Community Close-Up. I'm your host, Sharen Skelly, and today our guest is Jackie Ralph. And Jackie is from the Canadian Mental Health Association, and I should add in there, it's And Addictions. How does that work? What's the title?
We actually have 11 words in our title. So we're the Canadian Mental Health Association, Grey Bruce Mental Health and Addiction Services. You're right.
Yes. I knew addictions was in there, and that's a very important part of it too, especially now since we read almost every day in our media about someone who has succumbed to the disease of addiction, and that means a family is grieving, and friends, circle of friends are grieving for that person, and the community is grieving for them too. So we can't forget that also.
Yes.
So, but we're here today to talk, well, we're going to talk about a lot of things, but I'm wearing pink and you're wearing pink. And Pink Shirt Day is coming up, and the date we officially talk about Pink Shirt Day is Wednesday, February 22nd, 2023. But Pink Shirt Day has become an annual event, and for our viewers who don't know what Pink Shirt Day is, can you fill them in a little bit about the history of Pink Shirt Day, because it is very interesting.
It's awesome. So what happened was in Nova Scotia, there was a couple of young men in high school got word that there had been a grade 9 student, first day of school, that was bullied because he just had chosen to wear a pink shirt that day. And as you can imagine, the words that they used to bully him were not the most kind. And so what these two young men did was they said, you know what, that is not a reflection of our school. That is not who we are. And that's not who we want to be known as, especially when this young boy was like, this is the first day of his new school. And he's probably thinking, great, if this is how everybody is here, I don't know if I want to come to this school. So this is like way before social media. And they called all their friends and, on actual phones and said, hey, we need to show this young guy that this is not who we are. Do you have anything pink at home? And they ran to their local stores and bought their local stores that have everything pink socks, pink shirts, pink hats, anything they could find. And they got enough people together that the next day when this young grade 9 student walked into the school, the whole school was covered. Everyone was wearing pink, just to show that, hey, this is not cool. This is not how we want to be as a community. So when you talk about when we lose someone, it affects the whole community. It's such an amazing sign that what a whole community can do when something like this happens. And this one of the young men who had initially called out to his friends was someone who had experienced something similar before. And so, sometimes it takes one to know one, and that's when we step forward and say, no, this is not okay. And that little story went big, and CTV covered it, CBC covered it, and the next thing you know, we have the official Pink Shirt Day, which is always, it goes around in different days of February each year, but it's always on that Wednesday.
And it's just one day to remind us that, this shirt says, be kind always. What does your shirt say?
So mine's the official shirt from last year, which is lift each other up. And they kept with that slogan this year. So this is what this year's official shirts will look like, which is so beautiful.
Yeah, and it's true. Now, I know I got mine at the United Way. I imagine that's where you got yours. And I was just looking on their website and I couldn't see are they going to have shirts this year?
Yeah, so we always get ours from the official pinkshirtday.ca website, and they have T-shirts and buttons and lanyards, and they're really reasonably priced.
Yes, and it all goes to a worthy cause.
Yeah, so what they do is the Pink Shirt Day organization, just like you said, this is one day, but this doesn't just happen one day. And
That's
so
right.
these conversations need to be every day. And so the funds raised through t-shirt sales and that kind of thing fund programs that get offered and provided to schools. And one of those programs is actually the WITS program, which our Friends and Neighbors puppet program has been using for years and years and years. And it is one of those things that we can teach kids, well, what to do if it's me? What do I do? Well, instead of using my fists, I can use my wits, because to be honest, these are much stronger. And and
exactly.
what can we do? So so the funds raised from those t-shirts funds those kind of programs that go out for any school to be part of. And what's really neat is last year's funds actually are supporting a webinar that any school across Canada can register for. So when you go onto pinkshirtday.ca, you'll see they're having a whole day's worth of presentations. And I don't know if during the pandemic you noticed there was a certain positive, sunny, friendly gentleman from up in the Yukon that came out of his house every day and did a positivity dance. And his name is
yes, doesn't he still do them? Yeah, he still does them.
So he is doing a special dance on Pink Shirt Day.
Again, that's so cool.
To share love and positivity to anyone who needs it. And any school in Canada can click on the link, plug in the name of their school, and register to be part of that event.
Oh, that is so nice. And it was, I mean, it is still positive to see him dance. I mean, if you're feeling down and you watch him dance, it's hard to feel down after you've watched that.
Exactly.
And the joy he brings to people is really incredible.
Yeah.
It really is.
And that's really what Pink Shirt Day is all about, right? There's Gurdeep doing dances to say, hey, if you need it, I'm here for you. And then here's these two young gentlemen, Travis and I think the other, I'm blanking, but I think it's Travis and David. And they, you know, and this is what they did. And they got their friends to wear pink. And, you know, it cost them a little bit in buying some pink shirts, but at the same time, a lot of people just wore what they had at home. And so it cost really very little to make a big change.
And it usually doesn't cost a lot to make a big change. You just have to have the idea and the motivation. So it has to be something. It's always something that has happened. It's a life-changing event that makes people aware, and then they change. Bullying, which is what we're talking about, it doesn't have to be physical, is really significant in people's lives. I know we experienced it in our family, and it stays with you forever, that little part of you. And people that haven't experienced don't realize it affects the whole family. It really does, and the circle of friends. And it's something you carry with you forever. And it's something that you carry on with your own family. You remember it. It affects how you parent your own children. It's really significant. So this whole Pink Shirt Day, it's remarkable. It really is, and it helps children deal and parents too, I imagine.
Yeah. Exactly. Yep. And that's it's one of many resources for that. So Gabor Mate, he says, it's all of our childhood adverse effects, and it's not always exactly about what happened to you, but it's how it affected you. And if it affected you in a big way, then you're going to carry that around with you a long time, because it's about safety. And if your safety is compromised, that takes a long time, and it's so important to get help for those moments. And when we think about those times when that's happening to us, I know Kids Help Phone, that's one of the things they talk about a lot with kids, is feeling unsafe and what happened to me and what was said about me. And then they also have on the website, they have something called a documentation form, a bullying documentation form. And what they tell us to do is, when something happens that has you not feeling safe or feeling good, write it down and just kind of keep track. And then if at any time we have to reach out for help and we have to kind of go up the ladder, so to speak, we have it written down, what day it happened and what time it happened and who was there and who saw it. And that can just be so helpful, because having to tell our story over and over again can sometimes be really hard and just bring all those things back again. So No Kids Help Phone is definitely a big resource for that. And also when we talk to kids, we make sure, because you mentioned it just briefly already, there's a big difference between bullying and physical. So we always make sure that we're very clear that if you're getting physically harmed in some way, that's not bullying, that's harassment, that's assault, that's that is different. And so it's just really important that we don't just clump the two together because they're not the same thing. Bullying is something that's done intentionally to hurt someone's feelings and to affect them emotionally. It can happen once or it can happen more than one time. But again, it's very different than stealing or pushing or so we always want to make sure that that's known too.
Yes. And when you said the writing down, like documenting, and also just simply journaling anyway, is good for everybody. I always say that journaling how you feel about whatever it is, even if it's not documented, what you say is important, but how you feel about it too is important, just to get it off your chest. And sometimes it's easier to write it than to tell people. And then actually, if you have to tell someone, it's written down too.
And it can be so helpful. In fact, it can turn you into a career singer. I look at, we use the example a lot of Taylor Swift, right? And her whole song, Shake It Off, is all about that. It's like, hey, the haters are going to hate and the fakers are going to fake, and you just got to shake it off. And that's from, all of her songs are from basically journaling, is writing down things that happened to her, putting them to music, and then creating a song out of it. It's so helpful to do that.
Yeah. And remember, your journals are yours. They're private. Nobody should be able to read them. Your space is your space. Nobody should be able to go in and invade your space. It's your private space. Yeah. I mean, unless you're doing something illegal or, but it's your private space, and nobody should be able to invade that.
It's always your choice, right? Whether you choose to share it or not. Exactly. Yeah. You got it. And journaling, can sometimes be drawing. Sometimes we draw pictures. Sometimes we write poetry. Sometimes we put the two together, which is even more beautiful. Yeah, there's so many things that can be so helpful in those moments. The other thing we talk about too is those things that we do, what ideally and intentionally they help us do is to create our feeling of self-worth. I look at it that ideally we're all a little bit Garfield, because we all need that. We all need a little bit of Garfield in us, because, as much as maybe there's this one kid in school or in your class who's just really, got you in their sights, there's going to be another one further down the line. There just is. And so developing those strategies. So I think of Garfield, and, Garfield, he's a fictional character and he's a little narcissistic, but I don't think he would give two flying figs if somebody were to come up to him and call him Fluffy. Hey, chubby, right? Or any of that. He'd be like, yeah. Did you bring lasagna? I love lasagna. Like, because he's gotten to that point. He's okay with who he is. And when we have that superpower within us to be comfortable in our skin and okay with who we are, and we have a sense of belonging, and we have a sense of purpose and people that we feel connected to, that's what helps us the most in those situations moving forward. We always say, and you kind of talked about it already, is in those moments we can't change the bully. That's on them. And the other thing is we can't change the bully. That's on them. So guess what the third thing is? We got to change what we do. And it's all about our response to it and our reaction. So that's what we try and teach the kids with our puppet programs. We have 2 puppet programs that focus on this. We have one that's titled Wayne Gretzky is My Hero. And then we have another one titled Lisasaurus Rex. And those 2 plays that we do in the classrooms are basically about that.
And being how to teach to be assertive, I suppose. Not aggressive, assertive. There's two different
Right.
those are two different things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I call
Yeah.
it being compassionately firm.
Yeah. I love that, compassionately firm. That's a
Yes.
good way of looking at it. Yeah, I always taught my kids, you don't have to be mean, but you have to stick up for yourself. You don't have to be mean to the other person, but don't let them walk all over you either. So, yeah. But the first choice is not using your fists.
Yes.
That's never a good choice. But
and that WITS program is exactly that. So they talk about, our fists, FIST, and the WITS is referencing this. So W stands for if somebody is making you feel bad, you have the ability to stand up and walk away. Leave their space, like go somewhere else, go hang out with Mark. If you don't like how Sharon's making you feel today, go have lunch with Mark instead, right? Just get up and leave the space. And sometimes we need help with that. So sometimes as a bystander, if we see somebody in trouble and we don't want to get in the middle of it because we don't want to now be the bearer of that, we can say, hey, Mark, you're needed in the office right now. And then Mark can leave that location and come hang out with us. So walk away. And then I is just like Taylor Swift said, just ignore the words. They're just names. And as much as they can hurt that first time, we gotta shake them off. We just gotta let them go. And there's lots of ways to do that. We talked about journaling and writing it down, and even as doing something specific like tying it to a balloon and letting it go. Mind you, that's not good for the birds. So there's lots of other ways to do. And then T is talk it out. With the bully, if you feel safe, it's all like you said, be assertive, right? I don't like how you're making me feel. It's hurting my feelings, and I want you to stop. And if they
don't know that,
you got it, because I could be a cranky pants too. If I haven't had enough coffee or sleep. Yep, exactly. And boy, when somebody tells me that, it's like, oh my gosh, you're right. Like, I think I need a coffee and a nap. And I'm really sorry.
Yeah, but they might say the story. You never know.
Yep.
Stranger things have happened.
You got it. And if it still continues, then at least when you go up the line, you're able to say, hey, I said something, it still didn't stop. Can you help me? And that's what the S is, seek help. We always tell somebody about what happened, because we have to let it off. That's another way of letting it go. I think of the S like farts, right? Farts, we sometimes have one, and it can be uncomfortable, and we're not sure what people are going to think when we do it. And so we keep it inside. Well, once it's inside, it's just going to get bigger, and it's just going to take over everything you're thinking about. And it's going to come out anyways. You know what? Find someone you can fart freely with and just talk about those things. And sometimes when we seek help, even if we say, hey, to the teacher, Sharon was being really grumpy this morning. But, I used my words and I told her, and she apologized, and it was okay. But you know what, teacher? I've noticed she's been this way every Tuesday. And maybe the teacher can say, you know what? I think she stays up late on Mondays getting ready for her show. And so she hasn't had enough sleep. So maybe on Tuesdays we can tell her, hey, Mark, we can let her come into work a little bit later on Tuesdays. And that's the benefit of talking about it.
Maybe that's the day that she goes to stay with her dad.
You got it.
And her mom has to drop her off, and she's a little nervous. Those are kinds of things that,
And you only know what you know till you know it. And when the people around you don't know these things are happening, they can't help. But when they know about it, then they can help both the individual who's experiencing it and the individual that's maybe also having some troubles.
And that's all great. And the things you're talking about can translate into adults too, right? Because at work, people aren't always nice to each other, and you have to talk it out, because adults aren't nice to each other all the time either.
That's right. And that's why these are such important skills to learn when we're kids, because once we know them, we're never going to forget them. They're always going to be there. And these are things we can take with us right on through.
Yes, they're great skills to learn as children. And we've come a long way since even since I was raising my children in the 90s, 80s, oh my gosh, I'm old, but you know what I'm saying. But they're it's great to hear that we are making progress in that area. And, parents are probably very grateful. I mean, it's not perfect, but
Nothing is.
nothing is, but we have the tools. We have to learn to use them, and children have to be willing to try them, and parents have to be willing to say, instead of, "Oh, it'll never work." Yes,
Yeah.
it might. Try it. I do this. Facilitating for people with chronic pain and chronic conditions, health conditions, and we always say, try something new. Give it 2 weeks.
Yes.
Just give it a try. And people often say, "Oh, it'll never work." Just give it a try, and they'll try it, and they'll say, "You know what? That really did work." So, try something. You never know. It
You
might
never
work.
know. Yep, exactly.
Be
Well
open.
done. Yep. And it's a strategy that they teach in DBT, and DBT is for folks that are struggling with different aspects of their mental health. And one of the strategies they teach is when things aren't going right and things aren't going well, do the opposite and see what happens, right? And you're thinking to yourself, "Oh, I'm so scared about that," or "I don't want to do that." Well, try the opposite, right? Do it anyways, or give it a try, or, I don't feel like getting outside today. Maybe what your brain is telling you is today is actually the day to get outside. It's the day I need it the most. So I love that. You're teaching a really good strategy. Yeah.
That's a good idea. Well, I had a couple questions to ask you.
Yeah.
Now, this Pink Shirt Day and all the strategies they're teaching us, it's been a while since we've started doing it. Do you know, has it had, like with bullying and children being, harassed at school, have you had any statistics? Has it had any effect on this, or do they keep statistics?
So they do keep statistics. And I think what they find is that the strategies themselves are working, right? Like being able to use your wits and steady your fist. But what they come against is always, just like you said, there's no perfect world, right? And so we just always seem to be, there's always something going on. And that's the part that is never going to change. But
right.
Again, how incredible it is that we can learn these things. And so, and it's hard to, those statistics are really hard to gather, because how can you say, did this stop you from not bullying somebody when you meant to do it? So
hard to tell. But I guess from our conversation, we've gathered that it is making a difference.
Yeah, it sure is.
Well, the fact that the program is there.
Yes, and still there.
Yeah. And they have this remarkable website with all the resources and that people are using them.
You got it. Yeah. And how many people wear pink I would love to track that, right? That almost like every school within the two boards do
that's
something.
What you could track for something. And I guess the fact that it's not just lip service, like they're not just wearing a pink shirt in February, they're actually taking steps and talking about it and teaching their children about, bullying and that sort of thing. Bullying is not just, talking, gossiping about friends and starting rumors, but it also happens on social media and on computers too. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh boy, isn't that the way? I when we do a lot of presentations in the school, I say, when I was in grade 3, the girl I was hanging out with at the time, came up to me and said, I want to hang out with Sharen because she's cool. And I'm like, I would love to hang out with Sharen too. She's so great. And she's like, no, I want to hang out with her. And so that was that day, right? That was that day I experienced that, this person didn't want to be my friend anymore. And then I'm so thankful looking back, because if it was now in 2020, what would have happened was, oh my gosh, maybe that girl would create a whole other Instagram page and welcome all of her friends onto it. And then they talk about another person within that. It's just, it has become as much as social media can be so helpful and create so many positive messages, it can also be that avenue with which bullying happens and then expands so far. And that we see over and over again. And we have seen the tragic sides of that. But at the same time, there's also things we can learn from it. And one of my favorite examples of that is a lady called Lizzie Velasquez. And when Lizzie was born, she's born with a disorder that makes it so that her body has no tissue. So she has bones with skin over top and nothing in between. And she looks very different than other kids. And her parents raised her to be, well, Lizzie, it's who you are. You can't change it. So you need to embrace it and accept it and celebrate those things that make you you. And that's how she went into school, her first day of kindergarten. And all the kids are like, oh, she looks different. I don't know. I'm scared. And they stayed away from her. But eventually she's like, well, I like playing Legos and I'm going to be here in the corner. And if you want to come hang out, that'd be fine. And eventually kids did. And when she got into social media, has her Facebook page and puts up her profile picture, someone thought it would be funny to take her picture, right click, save it, turn it into a meme. And over top of Lizzie's picture was written the words, "This is the ugliest woman in the world." And that picture was shared millions upon millions of times. But to hear Lizzie talk, she does TED Talks now about it. She says, I had to realize that those 44 million people that shared that picture had never met me. They have no idea who I am. And so if you get a chance to hear her talk, it's an incredible example of, with the right strategies and the right amount of self-worth, we can honestly get through anything. And she jokes about it. The funny thing is, she says, she's become a motivational speaker and she thanks people for sharing her picture continually because she says it saves her on advertising. Because if you type into Google, the ugliest woman in the world, she says, I come up right away. And that's amazing.
Lemons into lemonade, that's for sure.
You got it.
Before we wind up the show, if people want to find out more about Pink Shirt Day, they go on to the website that just says pinkshirtday.ca.
You got it. Super handy. Yeah.
And they can get information about that. They can buy products and they can get information about bullying.
And they can download these awesome posters and put them up.
And if they have school-age children, more than likely they're going to be participating in Pink Shirt Day events. If they don't, wear a pink shirt on Pink Shirt Day. Wear it to school, wear it to work, wear it at home. We usually dress our children in pink that day. And Jackie, thank you very much for joining us and telling us all about Pink Shirt Day. And it's the fan club.
Friends and Neighbors, the fan club.
Friends and Neighbors Club and all the work you do at CMHA. And we'll have you on again to talk more about that and the addiction part of the CMHA, which is also very important here in Grey Bruce, Owen Sound, across the province. From where I'm from, Sudbury, it's horrible there too. So thanks very much for joining us here on Community Close-Up. And remember, it's your community, so take part. We're still in the midst of COVID, so wear a mask, get your vaccination. That's my personal opinion. And mask up, wash your hands, and join us again here on Rogers TV. Bye for now. Thanks, Jackie.
Thanks, Sharon.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
What kind of show do you want to see on Rogers TV? What interests you? Log on to rogerstv.com, fill out a show proposal, and tell us about your segment idea. We want to know what you want to see. Rogers TV, only on Rogers.